Hi, everybody. So happy to be here. I can definitely vouch for Wendy and her enthusiasm about starting a group because last week, Wendy had asked me to speak, and I said to her, one day I want to start a group, and she's like, why don't you start it here? So I'm going to be starting a group soon, and I'm really excited about that. I wanted to say thank you for letting me speak today or inviting me to speak. I've been interested in this stuff for so many years now, and really haven't been able to find a group of people who are, really open to all aspects of consciousness. I guess I'm going to start with a little bit about me and my experiences and how things evolved over time. Last week, Kim gave a talk about the Gosh group, and people were invited to share some of their stories about strange happenings. So I was able to tell a story about my cat, Coconut, and how he passed. What I noticed was when I was telling my story and I was describing my cat, Coconut, when he passed, and he was communicating to me about something that had happened in the vet's office. I'm just gonna click on my picture to show you. This is Coconut, okay? And I was letting you guys know that, when he came to us, he kind of ruled the roost. So there he is, he's center stage. That was him. That was part of his personality. So as I was describing him, I noticed Mike's cat climbed up on him, and there he is. He looks very similar to my cat as I was describing exactly what Coconut looked like. And he stayed on Mike.
Catherine, if you can hear me, he's here.
Oh, he's here. He's here now. Okay. He knows. See, so I just thought it was so funny. I wanted to bring it up today because this is how, like, my cat must have communicated to his cat, and then his cat jumped on. I'm convinced of that. It's just the way that they show continuity and that they're listening and they know what's going on, So I was so tickled by that. I just thought I would share that with you guys. So if you want to check out last week's global gathering, the story is on there about Coconut, and you'll see he stayed on Mike's shoulder the whole time that I talked about Coconut, and I just thought that was great. So thank you. Thanks, Mike. So, all right. So I would say around 2005, 2006, I started to feel like I wanted to connect with a group of people in my local area, but I knew that I want to explore more about my spiritual life, but I didn't want it to go into a religion. I knew that I really wanted something open, more open, that didn't have, rules and just things like that. And I didn't even know what I was looking for, but I Googled spirituality groups, things like that. And it's very interesting because when I think about that time that I was doing that, I didn't let anybody know what I was looking for. And then a very good friend of mine called me up out of the blue, and she's like, oh my God, Catherine, I just went to this church last week, and it was really amazing. I think you'll really enjoy it. She's like, it's all about, personal responsibility and connecting to, the spirit world and just very open. It's about the golden rule, and there's no dogma involved in it and everything like that. So I said, wow, that's interesting, because I just Googled it, and I actually saw there were spiritualist churches, and I never really knew I never even heard about a spiritualist church before. So I went to that particular one. There was I think 3 in my area, 3 or 4 of them, but I ended up going to that particular one that my friend had recommended. And prior to that, I was having conversations with different people, like different family members. And as I was speaking to them, one time we were talking about my grandfather, and I started to smell his cigars. There was nobody around smoking a cigar. Another time I was telling another family member about a man who had crossed over very tragically on the job that I had worked at. And some funky things happened afterwards with the group that he worked with. And I was explaining this to my family member. And as I was telling her about it, he literally walked right in front of me. So it was like I saw him in a group of people, and he looked over at me, and he didn't look like a spirit, like he looked like a solid figure, okay, like he was just as solid as you and I. And I was stunned when I saw that. So I got really curious about mediumship and what was happening with me. And so it just ended up to be so perfect that right after that, you know, my friend had told me about the Spiritualist Church. So I started to go to the Spiritualist Churches by my house. And there was one particular one that I went to very regularly. And I remember when I first went, you know, I would be at home and there'd be a situation going on, you know, at my house or with, you know, my family or whatever. And I'd be talking to my grandfather in my head, okay? And then I would go to church on Sunday, and the medium would get up at the podium and she would give me a message from my grandfather answering my question that I had when I would connect with. To me, I was, at that point, I realized, you know, anytime I talk to him, he hears me. And I said, that to me was just fascinating. So that I know for sure, just based on my own experience, that anytime I send out a message, a thought, a prayer, any kind of connection to my grandparents, my relatives, my loved ones, my pets, they hear me. So that opened a door for me. And I knew, you know, I really wanted to explore this more. So I started to sit in on weekly mediumship circles where they were called unfoldment circles. And every week we would meet and we would do exercises and just to, you know, expand our consciousness and to connect to the spirit world and to connect the spirit world to their loved ones that were sitting in circles. And the first thing that I learned to do was to meditate. And, you know, I remember feeling frustrated by that at first because I'm like, oh, I'm never going to be able to quiet my mind and, you know, do this. But for me, it helped to have the medium who was in, you know, at the time he was awesome. He was a spiritualist minister, but he would run the circles every week and he would do guided meditations, follow along with the guided meditations. And every now and then my mind would go in its own direction or my, you know, my consciousness, but I just accepted it and very gentle with myself. But I remember the first time he had said, that ask to meet your spirit guide. And all I saw was the bottom of like a robe, it looked like, just the bottom of a robe. I didn't even see the whole robe. And I thought, oh, wow, I wonder why I'm only getting a small glimpse. Like I'm not able to see the whole form. But I just, you know, again, I accepted that and I went with it. So slowly, over time, I was able to see different spirits and I was able to tell who the spirits belonged to in the circle. So little by little, I would, you know, start giving messages and we all did. We were all developing mediums. And then over time, I was able to, you know, I felt like I was jumping off a cliff the first time I ever did it, but I stood at the podium and I would give messages. And what I realized is that once I did that, the spirit world really came through and they wouldn't leave me hanging. So that was really an awesome experience. So on the podium every Sunday and I gave messages and either that or I did healing. I did hands-on healing. And then towards the end, I started to do spiritual addresses. But what happened was after I started to get involved in mediumship, I was asking to meet my spirit guides. You know, I would come home here and I would meditate here too. And my spirit guides started to introduce themselves to me. And I was seeing them one after another and after another. And what ended up happening was my walls pretty much disappeared. And I was in the cosmos and I was having all these different experiences. This happened over a few month period, but I ended up having, which I realize now, or I did some research on it after it all happened. I had what was called a Kundalini awakening or a spiritual awakening. It was almost like I was walking in two worlds. For me, it was amazing, this feeling of oneness and bliss and joy. And, you know, when I would, these guides were with me, it's hard to describe it, but I felt almost like at a certain point that I was morphing in with them, like different beings were kind of like morphing in with me. And it was all part of this, I think, initiation that was happening with me. And there was a being that was speaking with me telepathically. And he was the only one that I really didn't know who he was, but I knew he was not from here. That's what I knew. But he worked with me for many hours. And it was all telepathic, and he just was very loving, very intense. And there was a lot of downloads. I was getting these downloads into my heart. And it was like a teaching that was happening. I can't remember a lot of it, but I know that whatever was happening, it was just like going right into my heart. So at that time too, I was also seeing my relatives that were on the other side, and I was having conversations with them, and it was really amazing. It was an amazing time in my life. It ended up staying with me for quite a while. And during that time period, I just felt like all of this love and bliss and oneness. And I was traveling with my guides. They would be taking me to different places, and I would wake up remembering, like, I knew what it was like to be part of the trees, and I knew what it was like to be part of the ocean and one with everyone and everything. And at a certain point, I remember feeling like I kind of knew the answers to everything, which I don't. But at the time, I felt that oneness. So, I don't know that anymore, but there were glimpses of that. And I felt like I went through some kind of a life review also during that time period. I thought I was going to stay like that forever, but I didn't, because I had to come back down to earth and be part of earth, and but they were preparing me. And I asked them, well, what am I going to be doing? They didn't tell me the whole thing, because like my mentor, Dolores Cannon, used to say, you wouldn't give a baby a steak. So they didn't want to overwhelm me with stuff. So they just said, well, you're going to be, doing some healing work. And then after that, I'm like, okay. So anything I found out about different healing modalities, I got this hunger to just learn about all different things and spiritual stuff. And, it was just this ongoing quest to just find out about my path and what I'm going to be doing, because I knew I was going to be doing something. So I learned a lot of different healing modalities during that period of time too. I did want to share something that did happen when I was in the Spiritualist Church. So I'm going to do share screen again. So during those years, I think it was like in 2007 or 8, when I was going to the Spiritualist Church, they would have different speakers come in, and this couple came in from Massachusetts, and they gave a class about orbs. So they had each one of us sit in front of them, and they would have us, say a little prayer and call in who you wanted to see or who you wanted to come, in an orb. And so I called in my grandparents, and I said, Grandma and Grandpa, can you please come in and just show yourselves, like let yourselves be known. And the camera he was using, he developed right there. So you didn't get to see the picture right away, but it would show up on his screen, and then he would have to develop it afterwards. So I remember when he took the picture, there were people standing behind him, and they went like, oh, like that. So I thought, oh, wow, I can't wait to see the picture, So anyway, so he developed the picture. I saw these big orbs, right? So there's this one here, there's one over here, there's a little guy over here, and then there's this one up here. And this one to me, it kind of looked like the earth. Can you see that one up top?
Yeah.
So I got home, and I put my glasses on, because I was only wearing readers at the time. I looked at that picture more closely, and what I saw was my grandfather's face in that orb. So I don't know if you can see it, but I see him clear as day. Here's his, can you see my cursor? Here's his eye. This is his other eye. It's kind of like his profile view. He's looking towards me. There's his nose, and then here's his mouth. Here's his ear over here, and then here is the shape of his head. He even has his glasses on. I can see his glasses. Looked at this picture, and I was blown away. This was probably a week after the orb class. And I was like, oh my God, my grandfather's in the orb. Holy mackerel. So then I looked more closely at this picture, this orb here. And if I look in the center of that picture, it looks like a face, like right dead smack in the middle. So I always thought, well, maybe that's my grandmother. Then I'm like, well, why are they showing me this? Why is this here? This looks like the earth to me. And anyway, so I took a picture of this last week or a couple days ago when I was getting ready for this talk. And what I noticed was, after all these years, once I took the picture and I enlarged it on here, right next to my grandfather to the left is a face of a woman And I believe that's my grandmother in that orb too. And I didn't even see her in there until 2 days ago. So I'm really excited about that. And then what I also realized was I had been wondering about this globe, this earth orb for years too. Anytime I see this picture, I have it on my desk in my office and I always see it. And then I realized I'm going to be showing this at the global gathering. So I just think that's funny. It's kind of like they had this little joke and they weren't going to let me know about it until today or until a couple days ago. So this is, to me, that really reminds me of the earth. The other thing, I don't know if you can see it, but there is actually a face of my grandfather in here in the background, and it shifted over the years. It used to be over here, but now over the last couple days when I first put this picture, you know, I took a picture of the picture. My grandfather is over here. Here's his eye, here's his other eye, there's his nose, his mouth. I can see his ear here, and then the whole shape of his head. Now, the interesting thing about this picture too, the one of him with the profile view, is that in his house, and I'm gonna click out of this because I'm gonna show you, he had a picture in the corner over here that always hung in his dining room. A family member of mine had painted of him. And it's the same exact picture of him that came in the orb, except his mouth is opened a little bit. So I just found that amazing. So here's my grandfather. This is him when he was older, and this is a picture of him when he was younger. Yeah, so that opened up my eyes to orbs and, you know, that different. So I don't know if you can see him again, but there he is. Yeah, so that was like a really good, that was a really good lesson for me about orbs and intention. And then, you know, calling in, you know, your loved ones, and they will show up in that way. It's pretty fascinating. So I love that story, and I'm happy to share that with you guys. All right, so over those years in the Spiritualist Church, I had so much fun. I took all different kinds of classes, and I even took like a shaman class that was outside of the Spiritualist Church, but it was through people I had met while I was in there. That was like a 6-month intensive. I learned all kinds of different healing modalities through shamanism, and that was like that. I was like a kid in a candy store. I was meeting all different power animals, and I learned how to do soul retrieval and things like that. So that I just loved that. So over time, I guess like around 2015, a lot of things shifted within the Spiritualist Church that I was attending, and so I felt like it was my time to leave. So I ended up leaving, and you know, I felt like I kind of was like really upset, because so I remember just feeling kind of lost, like what am I doing? But I felt like I failed at my mission. And you know, I remember one of my guides coming and saying, no, that was just part of your education, and now you're going to move on to other things. And I was like, okay. So there was like a time period where nothing was happening. And so I went through kind of like a little bit of a dark night of the soul. There were other things going on too, just on a different level. I remember one evening I was praying, and I was just asking for help and healing. And, you know, because I had felt, you know, pretty not in a great place, I guess. And as I was praying, this was right after Mother's Day. So I just took this picture to show you. My daughter had put this on my back door, my back patio door. And it said, and this was 2016, let your light. After that, that's when I had my evening where I was praying and asking for help and healing. And I was laying on the couch in my living room. I had lit a candle that my daughter made for me. There was a white light that showed up in my mind's eye. It was this brilliant white light, and they were like pumping me. I felt this like just brilliant white light just filling me with all this love. And I knew I wasn't alone. And I saw in my mind's eye this triangle craft, and it had 3 lights on it. It had a light on each corner. And then in my mind's eye, I saw this being that started to descend down from the craft, and the being had this long robe on. I could not see the face, but I knew they were working with me, and they were healing me. So when I opened my eyes, I'll show you the candle. This was that my daughter gave me, and this was the wax that melted down onto the cabinet, and it to me looks like an angel. I took a picture of it because I was pretty blown away by that. To me, I felt like they were giving me, you know, some physical proof that they were with me. And I'll show you, this is it after I blew it out. So after that was all these things started happening. I'll show you my cat. This is my cat. This is my little cat. And he was, you know, he lived on my porch for many years, and he was very instrumental. He ended up getting attacked by a pit bull and started to, you know, come to me from the afterlife and having conversations with me, which I know sounds crazy, but he was kind of part of things too. Here, I'll just show you him. There he is. There's my buddy. That's Blizzy. Anyway, right after that, I started to feel better after that whole light experience. And I started to go to acupuncture too. And I remember being on the acupuncture table, this being, this very tall being, it looked like a feline being that was working on me and doing healing work on me. Earlier, I forgot to mention, during my spiritualism, when I was doing a lot of mediumship, I was actually seeing different beings in my head. Sometimes I would see like feline being. I thought, wow, that's interesting. You know, it didn't scare me or anything. I just thought how odd that is, because I knew it wasn't a cat. I can tell the difference between a cat, like, you know, our cats we have here, but this was a being because it stood up on, you know, it stood up like you and I do on two legs. So anyway, so these beings started working with me. And then, you know, shortly after I started to have, like I would see a lot of different crafts, and things would fly over my house, and my house would shake, my phones would start going out of whack. Yeah, all kinds of different things. But one night I woke up at like 1 a.m, and I never had this feeling, but I had been in my house like 26 years, and all of a sudden I had this urge to go take pictures in my backyard, because I couldn't sleep, you know, because there was all this energy and all this stuff that was happening. I had started channeling too with somebody that I knew in another spiritualist group. So there was a lot of things, excuse me, there was a lot of things going on. But so I take these pictures in my backyard, and here's one of them where there's this like shaft of light that just, I didn't even see it, you know, when I was taking the picture, but that's the corner of my house there. In the video, I took 4 pictures from left to right in my back. Then all the way to the right, I just filmed a little bit. So I filmed over where that light stream was coming down. And when I went back in the house, when I looked at the pictures again, I saw this stream of light. But then coming out of that stream of light in the video was this golden disc, and it was like a disc shape, and it moved across really fast. So I slowed it down on my video, and then I enlarged it, and I was looking at it, and I'm like, what the heck is that? So I see this little orange or golden disc here, and then I see this green orb on top of it. So then the next day I go back to acupuncture, and then, you know, my guides were there again. I'm asking them in my mind's eye about this picture. So they tell me there's a feline being in that green orb, and I said, no way. And they said, yeah, go home and look at it. So the interesting part about that too is that I had experience with a white feline being also earlier. And I know this sounds insane, but I don't know if anybody can see it. There's his eyes here. There's 2 eyes, and then his nose, and then a little mouth. His head is turned a little bit, but this is the shape of his face. And then there's like his body over here. So that's kind of how things started to open up for me. And then the next day, I took more pictures at night, and exactly where that stream of light came down, there were 2 lines coming down from the sky, which I thought was interesting. That would be in the same exact spot. Well, I kind of think it's going to be a multi-layered type of thing. Well, what I kind of envision, I've been getting stuff that's, you know, popping in my head lately. I want to have a couple things going on. I want to have a group where people can feel comfortable talking about these experiences. And so I want to have like a safe place for people to be able to share openly what's happening with them. And that's one group that I would like to start. Another one I would like to do is to have a group where we're getting together, and we will be working on expanding consciousness. And I think we can do that through different forms of spiritual practice and meditation and all different things. I mean, there's so many different modalities that you can use to do that and to work on expanding consciousness. So I have over the years compiled many meditations that I've written, and I also have a lot of things that I've worked on with, you know, shamanism and healing and things like that. So, I mean, it's not all, I don't have it all together in my head, but I'm just getting different things. But I think it's going to be a group that will evolve over time. And
Yes.
I think that it will be exciting and fun and hands-on. So people will have their own experiences. It's not, you know, it's not just one person. It's going to be everybody will be having their own experiences. So that's my goal. Oh, I don't think we decided on it.
Literally, just for the record, I'd like to ask her how long she stayed in the Spiritualist Church that she had to leave. Just curiosity.
Yeah, I think I started going there, I think in 2006, and I ended up leaving there in very early 2015. So I was there for about 9 years, a good 9 years. Yeah, it was really a wonderful part of my life, and I was so sad to leave there. You know, I felt like part of my heart was being left there, you know, but
Louisa, is that something you can relate to, that whole idea
Yes,
of
of
moving
course,
through
that's what I
different
asked.
stages?
Yes, because with me and Libya, for example, we usually stay 7 years. Yes, in some spiritualist church or spiritist center. And after 7 years, something happens that we feel that it's time to move on and go
Yeah.
places, you know. It's very interesting. So I maybe said, maybe she had this 7 years too, but this, for me, since I was a young man, 7 years usually. So for when I found a mediumistic circle, usually 7 years, right? And then I leave the, I take I get someone to go on with the group, and then I leave because it's time.
Catherine was mediumistic as a child.
You know, I've always been, when I was a child, I had out of body experiences.
Oh, yeah.
I've had experiences where I was frozen in my body and couldn't move. And I knew there was a presence that was there with me, and I was scared, you know. So I had a lot of things that happened as a child that made me know that I am not just this body.
Yeah.
Dolores Cannon, I trained directly with her in 2014 in Arkansas. I was so blessed to be able to be we were the second to last class that she ever taught, because then she passed shortly after that. But she was an amazing woman. She wrote over 20 books, and she did a very specialized hypnosis technique called quantum healing hypnosis technique. And it is a multi-dimensional experience, healing, and it encompasses past lives, future lives, in between lives, and you're actually getting in touch with your higher self, and your higher self is speaking through you during the hypnosis portion of it. So it's just phenomenal. So, but I would love to talk more about that. And I even told Wendy, I had said in the future I would love to, you know, maybe do a group or do a Sunday gathering about it, so I can really describe it well, and for all consciousness explorers, you know, we all are.
Yeah.